New spark plug, more power, hour meter help us with the oil changes. All right, guys, I have been using a genuine NGK BP6ES, I guess it's the resistor version spark plug. The spark plugs that come from China are just cheap plugs. They're not very good at all. So first thing I always recommend is just get a good plug. Now, there's an even better plug than this, and this is the Autolite AR3910x. If you spend any amount of time on go-kart websites and go-kart hot rod, go-kart racing forums, you're gonna see this plug talked about more than any other. Note the pattern here, this X pattern here. You think, oh, that's just a gimmick. I'll tell you why it isn't a gimmick. While this is a good traditional plug, spark plugs have not changed much over the past, I don't know, 100 years or something. And it's only till now that we're really starting to get some design changes like this. This is going to create a much stronger flame front, I imagine a faster flame front, bigger spark, more power. And the one claim on all these websites is that this thing will add 3/4 of a horsepower just from putting that in. Well, it makes more sense. You're making a more efficient engine. Anytime you have a way of making the engine more efficient, you're going to have more available power. Here's another reason. If you look at the length, you see the length, how that's a little bit longer? That's going to add a touch more compression, okay? You won't be able to tell the difference just on the compression alone, but it is more compression. You're going to burn the fuel more thoroughly. Combined with the fact that we've already put in a good exhaust and a good cylinder head, a good exhaust and a good intake, you're going to burn that whole thing far more effectively and generate, upwards of 3/4 more power. Need to teach you something, guys. Always warm up your engine before you get out on the water, especially if it's cold out. You crank it up, you give it some rev, make sure it's running, and then get out on the water. Don't get out there on the water and start drifting downstream and you find out the motor won't crank. I mean, come on. It has some kick, baby!
Man, nothing tests an engine better than doing a hard 360 turn like this, just like a big fighter jet that banks real hard. You'll bleed off a lot of energy, and that amount of energy you bleed off will tell you just how much power you have or don't have. You got a lot of power, you won't bleed off a lot of speed. You don't have much power and torque, you'll just slow down to nothing. And this thing just kept going. Well, let's just keep going and see what kind of trouble we can get down below the dam. High current will test your power levels. Trust me. While we're here, we just as well do a little fishing.
All right, first bluegill of the season, fellas. Cold, water's still cold, very cold. Really, they're kind of closer to the bank where the water's probably somewhat warmer.
Enough of that. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get to down in the creek. This is known as Davis Creek, and it's actually quite shallow. The creek's really muddy this time of year, very sooty, very sandy, and sometimes you just can't help but have a little fun, see if you can't do like a slalom right through them. Really fun.
So what are my conclusions? We gotta go get our hat. Oh gosh. What is it, AR3910x? It's a good plug. I mean, I like the plug. I like it better than the NGK, but can I tell a difference in power? Well, I mean, I don't have a dynamometer, so I don't know. It's a part of a build. I'm on this ongoing quest to find the perfect mud motor build that gives you a more efficient engine, more performance, and without blowing up the motor and leaving you for dead below the dam. And I think I found it. And at this point, I'm asking for advice from you go-kart builder guys. I'm thinking of doing a camshaft change with this particular motor to a CL1, the original CL1. I'm gonna keep the governor in, stock rod, but I'm gonna use the flywheel off my BSP motor that blew up a year ago or whatever. And that way you have a motor that has a good intake, good exhaust, rejetted carburetor, a good flywheel, and a good camshaft. I'm gonna keep it below 5,000 RPM because you can adjust the governor just with the throttle stop screw. So I'll get a tachometer, set it for about 45 to 5,000 RPM. It's about like 30% more RPM if you hit 4,800 RPM, which would be very easy to do. Will the CL1 camshaft give me a little bit more power, a little bit more torque, a little higher in the RPM range? Instead of maxing out at, say, 2,500 RPM, it maxes out at, say, 4,800 RPM or something. If you can do that, I think you have the perfect mud motor to get reliability, to get more performance, but a more efficient engine. And that's the thing I think that this plug gives, is it makes a more efficient engine. It's a longer plug, so it sits a little deeper into the combustion chamber. It's going to give you a touch more compression. And any time you get more compression, you have a more efficient engine. And then that X pattern makes a much hotter, well, it's a cold plug because these engines need to have a cold plug once you start getting more power in them. I was surprised by how the engine now hardly needs any choke to start once you've been running the engine for a while. You know how you're running your motor, especially a bone stock Predator or whatever, and it's just like a cold-natured engine. You'll run the engine, you'll run 10 miles upriver. And if you shut down the engine for any length of time, 5 minutes even or less, you got to put full choke on to start it. Whereas this engine, once I've been running and I shut it down, a lot of the time I didn't need choke to restart the engine. The only time I needed the choke to restart the engine was when the engine completely cooled down. You have a spark plug that is burning that fuel mixture so much more effectively that you just don't need the choke to start it, to enrichen it, to get it hot enough to burn in there, to get the cycle going. It's a good plug, and I think it's gonna be a good plug as a part of the entire build, the entire package. And I think that's the #1 thing. I like the NGK plug. It's a good plug. It's a reliable plug, but this AR3910 is just better. When I crunk up right out here in the creek to move out, I just kind of bumped the throttle and it just seemed like it had a little bit more go to it, That much better throttle response than the NGK. Now the real question is what if we went with the NGK 8 ES? I don't think you get the same level of performance because there's no way that spark plugs have been the same for almost 100 years now, and there's no way that traditional plug is going to have the same temperature burn or the flame front or the way the flame front expands out or any of that. There's just no way. 3910X, it works. I mean, if you want to try one, I'll put a link down in my description or whatever. Get them on Amazon. I've tried to find them locally. I've never been able to find them. But you can get it on Amazon. I can get an affiliate link, kickback affiliate commission on that if you want. But try it. I think it's worth it. There's a reason these go-kart racers are using this plug all the time. But, and I think, I'd like to thank I forget the fella who sent these to me, but if you know who you are, just comment down below. We can chat, and so I thank you for sending me that plug to try out. It is definitely worth it, and I'm definitely a convert to these 3910x plugs. See ya.